I want to talk with you about a difficult kind of presentation of a couple. Not serious pathology and abuse and affairs, but a couple where you have an eager beaver spouse, ready for therapies, thought a lot about the problems, maybe you read self-help books, and you have what I call the turtle. It's like, oh, okay, I'm here, but I'm kind of, self-protective. I'm not going to say a whole lot. And for purposes of my presentation here, I'll do the stereotype. It's the wife is the eager beaver, husband is the turtle. So in they come. She fills a lot of space, what she's here for, blah, blah, blah. And he doesn't fill much space. It's more, I guess there's some things that she's not happy about. He speaks in half sentences. She speaks in paragraphs. And so here is a trap to avoid. What's happening inside us is, I'm looking for people who will engage me here. And you have one engager, and then maybe you have to set a few limits, but basically somebody is signed up and the other seems to be, far, far away from me. So there's some traps to avoid in my own thinking at that point. And one of them is to assume that his self-presentation here in that first session or so, it gives me deep insights into his psychology, that he's afraid of intimacy. And then she may be complaining that he doesn't open up to her, he doesn't listen to her, the intimacy stuff. And then I can start to go to the old canard about the emotionally unavailable man. Well, maybe he is, but maybe he's not. Maybe he's really nervous about being here. Maybe he loves her dearly and isn't psychologically minded, but is open to getting there. Okay, so there's a temptation to think pejoratively, think in deficit terms of somebody whose self-presentation is the turtle, and then to be overly impressed, if you will, with the psychological mindedness, the feeling talk of the other spouse. Again, I'm not wanting to pathologize her in this case either, but what we have is two self-presentations that I ought to take as that and hold lightly until I get to know them better. And then secondly, it's important to bear in mind that since the language of therapy is all about psychological insight and feelings and so on, if one spouse, the eager beaver, is into that language and the other is not, then I can get into a coalition, a psychological mindedness coalition with somebody who speaks my language. And then the other person feels more and more out of it. So a couple of tips. One is to be willing to use less psychological language with the turtle who's not speaking that way. So I will often ask, say, a guy in this situation, what he thinks about something before I ask what he feels in the context of something, okay? I will ask for his reflections, okay? And I will make sure that I limit the amount of airtime that his wife gets versus him, so that there's a chance for him to get in. And then I will really search for a complaint that he has about the relationship, even if I think it's just sort of the opening salvo here, even if I think it's not more in depth, because I want him to sign up as an active agent here, an active participant in setting the agenda. So he's got to be involved in setting the agenda for our work. It can't just be she's got the agenda and then he either resists it or says, I'll take her agenda. So two things I'm saying with the turtle is to be willing to use different kind of language to engage that person, and to be looking for complaints and agendas so that this person becomes not just a kind of quiet adolescent in the room, but as an adult who has some concerns about that relationship. And then to end again with course, engage with the eager beaver. I'm glad when people are eager, but to not be overly impressed with the psychological, if you will, the emotional availability of that person who speaks my language, and assume that that person is much farther along psychologically in their development than the turtle. That'll be determined later, maybe, but not right now in the first session.